Hey guys, Jake from 80/20 Media here. Today we're doing a video on the best performance modifications for Nissan's Titan XD that has the 5.0 Cummins engine in it. Now, we did a video on 5.0 Cummins, common problems and reliability previously, where we said some not so nice things about the reliability of the engine. But with that being said, the 5.0 Cummins itself is an extremely strong engine. A lot of the problems with the 5.0 Cummins tend to be on some of the systems that are built around it, like the fuel pump and the turbocharger. But the engine itself is extremely strong, which is a really good thing when it comes to performance for the Titan XD, because you can make a lot of power with very few modifications. The Titan XD produced 310 horsepower and 555 torque. However, when you put it on a dyno, it dynos about 270, 275 wheel horsepower, and so the engine was considered to be a little bit underrated from the factory. This video is mostly going to focus on basic bolt-on modifications. Once we get past these basic bolt-on modifications, once you're looking at turbocharger upgrades and more advanced or extensive modifications, things get really expensive, predominantly because there is not a whole lot of support for the Titan XD for performance modifications, and so there are not a whole lot of turbo kits out there, and a lot of them are custom fabbed upon order, and so it gets really expensive once you start looking at turbo upgrades and pushing past just basic bolt-on modifications and the power that you can get out of those. With that being said, before we jump into the best mods, just a couple things to discuss here. The stock fueling system, while the CP 4.2 does have a number of reliability issues that we've discussed previously, it's actually very stout from a performance standpoint. The fuel pump and the injectors can handle about 700 wheel horsepower before you need to look at upgrading those. Now, we will talk about upgrading the lift pump a little bit later on, just to take a little bit of stress off of the CP 4.2. But for the mods on this list, you won't have to worry about fueling at all, which is nice. And then additionally, the Titan XD uses the Aisin transmission, which is pretty much the same ones that are used on Dodge Cummins trucks. There's no transmission tuning for these, but fortunately these transmissions can handle about 700 rear wheel horsepower before you need to consider upgrading those. Nothing that needs to be taken care of from a transmission standpoint here, which is a really great start for modifications on the Titan XD. Jumping into the best modifications, the first one's going to be tuning. Tuning can add over 100 plus horsepower on these engines. There's even some more aggressive tunes that can push 150 plus horsepower and can take your stock XD from 275 wheel horsepower to about 425 rear wheel horsepower and 750 torque. Trucks that are pushing those levels do have a lot of other modifications that we'll cover on this list here, but tuning is hands down the best modification on these trucks, and you're going to see the best dollar return on it as well. Now, there are a few different options here. Really, the only capable tuner for the XD 5.0 Cummins is EasyLink. When you purchase EasyLink, you're going to have to purchase tunes with it. So your options are to purchase some pre-built canned tunes that'll come installed on your EasyLink, or to get custom tuning. But the general consensus is that those canned tunes are not very good. They cause a lot of problems with transmission failure, turbocharger failure, and so on. The primary way that tuning increases power is by increasing the amount of boost that the turbocharger is producing. By doing that, there's a couple other modifications that we recommend that will help support the tunes, but will also help you make more horsepower off of the tuning. So the first one's a cold air intake. A cold air intake, when tuned, can provide about 15 to 20 wheel horsepower. It also has been seen to show 3 to 6 mile per gallon increases on the Titan XD, and overall it's good for power gains. It increases turbo spool, it adds more throttle response, and it gives you some cool noises as well. So bringing more air into the engine with a cold air intake is one of the best additional upgrades to support tuning. Going off of that, the third modification on our list is a 3.5-inch turbo inlet. This just aids in additional airflow going to the turbocharger. You're going to get better turbo spool, better throttle response. It's also going to help reduce turbo temperatures, which will help with the reliability of the turbocharger, since that is kind of a known problem on the Titan XDs. Fourth on our list is a lift pump. The Titan XD does have a factory lift pump, but as we mentioned, the CP 4.2 is known to be problematic, and so we recommend doing whatever you can to help reduce the stress on the 4.2. What we recommend is upgrading to a 110 GPH lift pump, and this should be good to support 600 plus wheel horsepower. Should be plenty to help support the CP 4.2, so long as you're not looking at turbocharger upgrades and things like that. The lift pump is more of a supporting modification. It's not going to actually add any additional horsepower, but it will help relieve some of the stress on the stock CP 4.2, which can help alleviate any problems that might have. The last thing on our list is exhaust systems. Once we're tuned, bringing more air into the engine and creating more power, we now have more air that needs to leave the engine. Upgrading the exhaust system is a really good way to reduce the amount of back pressure that is being pushed against the turbo, which helps increase turbo spool, but it also helps with turbo reliability since there's less pressure operating against the turbocharger. The caveat here is that exhaust upgrades on the Titan XD are a little bit more limited. Typically, we recommend upgrading the downpipe just since that sits closest to the turbocharger, but as far as I'm aware, there aren't any bolt-on downpipe upgrades. So your two options here are either getting a race pipe, which is going to delete the whole emission system, or getting a downpipe back exhaust system, which is also going to delete emissions. Those are going to be the best for performance and the best for back pressure reduction, but the caveat is that they are illegal exhaust upgrades. If you aren't looking to delete the emissions equipment, your only option from there is getting an emissions back exhaust system, which really isn't going to do a whole lot in terms of power or back pressure reduction, but it will add a little bit of a nice sound to your truck. The last thing to cover on this list is intercooler piping, charge pipe, up pipes. Things like that will help with airflow. It'll help bring additional airflow to the turbo, to the engine. But with that being said, unless you really are upgrading your turbocharger and trying to push significant power levels, I would say the gains that you're getting from these is probably not worth the cost to do them. On our list, if we were looking to do some basic bolt-on modifications to the XD, it would be tuning, an intake, a turbo inlet, a lift pump, and then potentially looking at some sort of exhaust upgrades as well. So that covers it for our 5 best modifications for the Titan XD. And with all of these things that we mentioned here, you should pretty easily be pushing 425 to 450 wheel horsepower and upwards of 750 torque. Now that might be on a slightly more aggressive tune, so it is noteworthy to mention that the turbocharger is known to be somewhat problematic on the Titan XD, so is the CP 4.2, and so keeping things at more modest power levels, at least for daily driving, is generally probably recommended just to prevent any issues that you might have with some of the factory accessories on the Titan XD. Overall, the Titan XD is very power capable. The 5.0 Cummins is an extremely strong engine. They have been pushing over 700 wheel horsepower and even over 800 wheel horsepower and over 1,000 torque without any problems to the block or to the internals, which shouldn't really ever need any upgrading. And so this is an extremely stout engine from a performance modification standpoint. Anyways, that covers it on the best modifications for the Titan XD. If you appreciate this content, please subscribe to the channel, click the like button, and stay tuned for our future content.